Greg and Bryn, it's great to be here with you today, and thank you for stepping into uncomfortable spaces you don't normally choose. I can't believe how fast the time is going. It seemed like it was just forever that you were moving, that was going to happen way down the road, and here we are at less than 2 months, and it's coming fast, and it's crazy. I'm so excited for you guys. This is a new chapter, and I'm excited to see what God's going to do in it. At the same time, I hate every minute of it, and you know that. I've told you that. And you're moving to the state up north. I mean, that's...
Michigan, you mean?
You said
Michigan.
it, not me. Yeah, and, how could you do that? That's enemy territory. No, I know you want to stay close to the enemy. I know how that works. But in all seriousness, I hate it for selfish reasons because, we have walked such a journey together over the years, and there's so much love and affection I have for you guys, and my family does too. And so this is a bittersweet time for sure. And I will say there's a pretty good chance I might lose it today, and if I do, if it comes, we'll just let it happen. And our body's watching this today too. No pressure, but there's going to be some people who know who you are. There's some people who come in and say, the heck are these people? So I thought for a second we could just reminisce a little bit about history. Let's go back, okay? And remember, do you remember the first time we met?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you remember?
Well, I'll step back just slightly before that.
Okay.
We were between churches, and we found Jeff Haynes's church. Jeff Haynes does the beautiful backdrops that we used to have before the pandemic, and the sets for the service. And Jeff and Linda both serve a lot around here and are in our small group. And Jeff had a church he was trying to plant called Oak Crossing, and we visited there. And after the service, we met Mike and Sandy Miller, and Mike's an elder now, and Sandy sings in the worship band. So some names that go way back to before that. And Jeff said, we loved that you came and visited, but actually we're closing the church down. It just hasn't been successful. So we were disappointed.
First week.
Yeah, we were disappointed because we enjoyed it. So anyway, he said, but there's let me give you the name of a guy who's trying to start another very similar church, Tom Bernardo. And so I called Tom, and we got together a few times, and I got involved in cell leader training and a few things before the very first service. So we were involved from even before the first service. But yeah, all that background is we had our first service at a hotel in the breakfast room, and Tom brought in a dear friend of his, Dan Thurmeister, to do the music. And there was the first time we met, I think.
I still remember. I can picture the door where we met.
Yeah.
When you came in. I
still can't believe we shoot out everybody on a Sunday morning out of their breakfast so that we could be there. But that was the very first service. We met like that for a while before we started up at the theater.
Yep.
And and who would have thought, back then, just meeting you, young guy.
Still a young guy.
And here, that's true. But here you are, the lead pastor at LCC. It's never would have dreamed.
What a crazy journey.
It was, it has been.
Oh, gosh. So we were in that theater 7 years, right?
Yep.
And we just had moments in there. I can almost smell it and taste it. It's tangible. Okay. Any memorable moments from the theater?
Well, there's one thing I've told, and people in my cell group have heard this before. We were meeting in the movie theater, and during the summer they often started the movies a little earlier, and so it kind of overlapped the teardown from our Sunday. And I was coming back from loading up Jeff Haynes's trailer with all the kids' stuff, and I was walking down the hall by myself, and some people came around the corner with their popcorn and drinks, and they're heading to their movie. And they held out their tickets to me thinking I was one of the employees there. And I'm not a person that thinks quickly on my feet. So I'm really surprised at myself, but in a very clairvoyant moment, or very, I said to them, I just took their tickets, I tore them off, handed it to them. I said, it's Theater 4 down there, and enjoy the show. And walked off. They never knew that I wasn't even a part of the theater there, so that was a funny story. Well, Dan, you mentioned that first service at the hotel room that you played in. I just want to mention also, back when I first met with Tom, he gave me this, Tom Bernardo, our founding pastor, he gave me this cassette tape of,
A cassette tape.
yeah.
The cassette.
That dates me, but a cassette tape of worship music that he was hoping to do at this new church. Because at that time, our style was pretty unique amongst churches. And I remember listening to that, and I thought, well, maybe in 10 years we'll be to the point that we can do that. And I was amazed, Dan, when you came on, and it was very short amount of time before we had a high quality band, and our worship was very dynamic and drew people to God, and that happened very quickly, and I remember being really impressed with that.
Oh, gosh. Well, if you knew how little I knew at the time, how I was winging it in some ways.
And one other memory from the past, and this one you don't have, well, another memory from the past was, I remember our very first cell leader retreat,
Okay.
which was, I believe it was in Indian Lake, was the first one.
The A-frames, yeah.
Yeah, the A-frames, and
We had no money, man. We
We
bought
had-
some. We stayed at some nasty places.
yeah, it was pretty challenging. But I remember that that was the first time I noticed, and this may have been going on well before that. But Brian Matheny was paying particular attention to Monica Sarkar.
Oh,
And
yes.
I remember it caught my eye, and I thought, something's going on there. And what's neat about that, I mean, here we've been on the whole run with Monica and Brian,
Yeah.
and they got, not only did they get married, but Brian's been an elder. He helped
Yeah.
plant a church from LCC. Monica is now our director of communications and
Connections, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, connections. And what a neat thing. I mean, that's the kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
people we've been around, and has made this, as Bryn mentioned, that it's going to make it a challenge to move on to that having, I mean, we weren't close friends with Brian and Monica that we would do things together, but just being around quality people like that
Oh,
has
yeah.
been a real
That was
blessing.
fun watching that little
Really.
relationship develop. What's happening here?
Yeah, no, and and additionally, I had their daughters for piano students.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so,
Yeah, I know.
so it's been neat how
It
our
goes full
lives
circle,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
intertwined all these
Yeah.
years.
Well, I sent a picture because I was looking through some old pictures just to get ready, and I sent a picture of Christy Burns with Kip in the nursery at the movie theater.
Oh, wow.
And Kip's, I'm just
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yep.
You know? And then God leads us into this crazy adventure and a battle to get into this space here, right?
Mhm.
That was 2004, and just the work it took. Do you remember renovating this place and all that happened?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was old.
I can remember insulation that we tore out, and I think there are still others. Chris Talon, I think, might have been there at the time. I don't know. But just thinking to myself, this is going to take a year off my life. There were
Yeah.
all kinds of animals, and you don't want to know what was in this building before.
I even remember sparks flying when we pulled out some electrical stuff, so.
Oh,
That's another famous Tom Bernardo fix-it story.
Oh my gosh. So God preserved us through it all. But so I mentioned earlier you're moving, right? And how are you feeling? Like it's coming fast. What's going on inside you guys as you think, both of you? I'd love to hear from both of you as you think about moving.
Well, you used the term bittersweet, and it's definitely bittersweet. We've been around, we've been in the Hilliard area, it seems like forever. We've been here a long time. His first job was, moved us to Hilliard, and we've been here ever since. And we've been a part of the church for a long, long time. So we're leaving behind a lot of memories, a lot of friends, a lot of activities, all sorts of things. It's bittersweet. We're thrilled to be going up by family, but yeah, what we're leaving behind, we're not taking that lightly. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
see, now I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, it's going to be a great adventure. We're looking forward to it, and for people just to know both our sons have settled in Holland, Michigan, and one of our sons has 2 grandkids and a wife, Christine Talon, who's now Christine McCall. The Talons go to our church here too, so we have a lot of reason to go up there just in that alone. But then we also have family in the area, and which we've made a lot of 6-hour drives back to Michigan over the years.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. So today we're just going to have just a conversation, right? But at the same time, there's important things, I think, for our body, and I know there's some things you guys would want to say too, but important things for us to see in a couple, and I really believe this about you guys, that has modeled for us what it means to love Jesus and to be involved with others, which is really the vision of our church, right? Like I said, I think you've got some things you want to say too, so we'll see how this goes, and if anything goes south, we've got the magic of Lee Zeidner to edit this down to perfection. So, all right. So one thing that's really stuck out to me in your time here and in this body of believers is you've had such a strong commitment to find your place to serve and to just live it out there. And that's both in the small group, and then here on Sundays in the collective too. I remember from almost the very moment you jumped in, and today I'm like, who does that? Who just jumps in and goes all in? Now we were a church plant, and we needed it at the beginning. There was really nothing that way, but you've always lived out that core value of being lay ministry mobilized. It's one of our core values, and it's that we believe that God never intended church to be a spectator sport, but that he gives vital spiritual gifts to every believer. And we see that in Ephesians 4 when it talks about the fact that we are to grow into the head, which is Christ. From Christ, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. And you guys have done that, throughout your time here. Bryn, you jumped in right away with worship, playing piano at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I was a worship leader back then, and we served so many years together doing that. But you started with the piano, and when an electric keyboard was presented, that was a big deal, right?
That was a huge deal. Well, I remember sitting in on a practice, just popping over to somebody's house where you guys were meeting and practicing, and I thought, this is great. I could probably do this, but it's an electric keyboard. I can't do that.
And through the years, yes, I challenged you with new technology,
Yes,
and
you did.
you fought me tooth and nail until
Yes, I did.
every once in a while I got one in. But you used your gift from the beginning, and you had other gifts you used behind the scenes too. You led groups for women. I know you've been involved in meeting with women, one-on-one too. You've been a support in the band, a team player throughout the years. It's encouraging to watch, and I think encouragement is actually one of your gifts. There have been times when we've been at the end, and an email will come from you, just an encouraging email, just at the right time. So you've also partnered with Greg in leading group too. Greg, for you jumped in, you invested early in leading groups. You then, as soon as we established it, you became an elder, which I'll ask you about in a second. But you've also been a cell coach. You've come alongside other men and mentored other men too. Now, you had children, 2 of them. You mentioned them, Ryan and Seth, who we know very well. Even when they came, you didn't stop. You didn't step back. You found your place in the family. It was a family for you. Your small group was a family. And that all sounds really tiring, maybe to some people who are listening. Like, how did you do that? How did you get so invested, stay invested while you had kids? How'd you balance all that?
Well, that's a great question. I've been thinking about that. At 60, it does sound exhausting. and frankly, I can't see how we did it, but just Bryn and I were really supportive of each other in doing things and allowed each other to dive in. And yeah, I don't know, looking, when I look at that original cell leader manual, the amount of commitment that
Oh
took
my
to
gosh.
implement was tremendous, and it
Yeah.
exhausts me to even go through it today and look at what
Mhm.
it required, and, but, yeah, I don't know. God,
Yeah.
when you're working with your spiritual gifts, it doesn't feel like is exhausting, I
Yeah.
guess.
That's a
The best
great
answer I
point.
can give to that, because I don't know how we did it.
Okay, now was it just because Bryn did all the work with the kids?
Well, it could be.
How about
Could
you,
well
Bryn?
be.
Was it like
That would explain why they turned out so good, so.
those early days? Was it exhausting, like being involved in a new church and?
Well, I think you forget about the years of parenting, how exhausting it is. It probably was exhausting, but I mean, you either stop life or you continue on, and it's just a part of it.
Yeah.
So
And maybe the gift of getting older is that God makes you like you don't remember anything, so you don't remember how bad it was.
that's right.
That's how it's with me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about Greg about being an elder. Okay.
Mhm.
I think people have pictures of elders that they're these guys sitting in back rooms with robes on, lighting candles or something. Maybe you can break the silence once and for all. What happens on an elder team? What's it like to be on an elder team? And what are some of the joys of being on an elder team?
Yeah, especially here at LCC, the elders have been a very quiet influence in the back and not as upfront as in maybe some other churches. And but it has been an incredible experience. Over the years, getting to know that group of men so well, and being able to see their lives and work together on the board and the unity that it has shown, it has been a great experience. And I have some experience with other churches being involved, and so I really have enjoyed that over the years, and I'm grateful for the guys I've gotten to know.
Yeah. And you may be asking, like, what's an elder, right? So let's take a moment just to learn a little bit about what that means. So 1 Timothy, in 1 Timothy 3, let's look at verses 3 through, let's see, 1 through 4. This is what we read in 1 Timothy. It says, "Whoever aspires to be an overseer, an elder, desires a noble task. Now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect."
I know,
What?
especially the beyond reproach, very
Oh.
first part of that. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah. And then it goes on in 1 Peter 5, it's addressing the elders again, and it says, this is your role. 1 Peter 5:2, "Be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them not because you must, but because you're willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock." That's a great description of what we do as an elder team, right? We shepherd the church. And I've seen you do it. I've seen you faithfully serve. Yes, you are quiet. You are gentle. That's how, you live those things out. But you've never been afraid to point to the truth and to speak what needs to be said. But one of the things I've appreciated about you, and I think others, we've just been blessed through the years, let's be honest, is that the personal agendas that we have, we pray about it beforehand. We leave those things aside. We set them aside and try not to bring them in. And that can be challenging, especially through what we've been through recently, because there's all kinds of opinions about what we should be doing during the pandemic and stuff. But to set those aside, to put the gospel first, that's been a gift to be a part of a group that does that. Now, a follow-up question. What is challenging? What's challenging about being an elder?
Well, first to go back to
Yeah.
what you were just saying, though, it really speaks to the quality of the men's relationship with God, that they can put aside their personal agendas and work together on those things, and discern what's important enough to speak up about, and even more, probably more challenging as to what to set aside, because that really isn't in God's view of things an important thing, but it might be to me personally,
Yeah.
but not in general. So, yeah, that's been a real strength of the group of men that we've worked with over the years.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back
Yeah.
to your
What
question
I
again.
asked about challenges, yeah.
Challenges. Well, I mean, yeah, there's things, things we've had to do. I mean, I've been with and prayed with men in ICU units that are, or people who are close to death and passed away, and those are extremely hard things to see and do, and we've had to wrestle through some marriages that were breaking down and work with those people. That's been hard. I even remember one time we were actually in our cell group meeting in our house, and someone came up to the door and knocked one of the other elders and said, "Greg, we have something we got to deal with right now." So we had to leave. And so yeah, there's challenges like that, and some very grave and challenging things, and staffing issues, and all kinds of very challenging budget stuff that we have to wrestle through, so yeah, it has its challenges.
And you think of all the things that have happened. I mean, we get to walk through the highs, right, of people coming to Jesus, of people growing, even planning a church we went through at one time, and then the hardship of that as well. People falling away from God, people caught in addiction, just people moving. I mean, all these things, the church,
Columbus is a very transient society.
Yeah.
People are in and out of here a lot.
Yeah.
One of the real heartening things, though, is, and kind of pre-pandemic, was after the service coming out and to the lobby and seeing the level of discussion going on, and the number of people that are interacting with each other. It really warmed my heart to see that level, that community that's in our name isn't just there. It wasn't a made-up name or anything. We really meant that.
Yeah.
And seeing that community happens, that's what really warms my heart to see. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
God is pleased to see that.
Absolutely, on both both wings, So we are. I'll just say this to our body: we're challenged as leaders, and it's a heavy load. It's a responsibility, and just a couple things from Hebrews 13 I want to share. And as we think about how to respond to our leaders, right, like our elder team, and Hebrews 13:7 says, "Remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith." And man, would I say that for the guys that are on the elder team, that just the way they follow Jesus, model that. And then Hebrews 13:17 says, "Have confidence in your leaders and submit to their authority, because they keep watch over you as those who must give an account." And that is a heavy responsibility, that we give an account as leaders. It goes on to say, "Do this," in other words, submit and have confidence in them, so that their work will be a joy and not a burden, for that would be of no benefit to you. So just a challenge for us to trust our leaders and to trust God with our leaders, I think it's an important thing. Anything you want to add there?
I mean, I definitely encourage our people in our congregation to take that to heart, that the elder board and leadership of the church is, I've had a lot of confidence and a lot of impressed with the character of that, and we've set up a little kind of countercultural arrangement here by having a lead pastor and a more collaborative leadership structure, and that's a little countercultural. A lot of that's just not the way many churches are led, and I have a lot of confidence in it. I would encourage everyone to really support that and support you, Dan, because you've done a great job, because that's your personality, to work with people and lead gently in a collaborative way. And I really have grown to appreciate that leadership here at LCC.
How much do I owe you for that? No.
Yeah.
And all this from a Michigan fan.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
I'm going to have to make you say "Go Blue" or something
Never.
to pay me back.
So let's go back again, you start at this church in 1997 about, and there's this focus on Jesus and this dynamic of community, living life together in community. And it's not just a focus, it's like just a core, it's so central to who we are as a church. And that's one of our core values, is that we're lovingly relational, that we believe that spiritual growth happens best in caring relationships where people actively participate in a small community of believers that encourages, that challenges, prays, serves, and learns together. From the beginning, we started with this verse in Acts chapter 2, this section of Acts chapter 2, that describes the early church, how they lived in community. And this has been a model for us to this day. It's still the model, right? That in that dynamic, right, they gathered together for the apostles' teaching and more, and everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together, had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need, and every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So you've got this radical shift to this picture of what community is. And I'll ask you first, Greg, and then I'll ask you, Bryn. What kind of shift was that for you to understand and fully enter into community, God's heart for community?
Well, it was a big challenge. It took a big change in our thinking, because I was in a church from childhood, a very traditional church, and then when we first moved here to Columbus, we were in another church that had small groups, so we certainly knew what small groups were all about. But here at LCC, there's a little different emphasis in the small groups, of making that the central view of being that's the church, is your group that meets together. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little bit scary, because I'm a very introverted person. The thought of meeting and sharing from the heart on things was a new challenge. So that took a lot of work. And it's funny. I remember very early in the church, when our first cell group formed, Tom gave me a list of people to call, and I remember on that list was a name, Chris Zarnowski, who is still at LCC and helps out with our cleaning team and serves and is a great cell group member. She was on that list, and being an insecure guy like I am, I was a little nervous about calling this lady and inviting her to this strange thing at our house, because I knew what we were trying to the way we wanted to try to pursue people and get more in depth than usual, and I knew that was going to be hard, and so it was a little unnerving to call her, and I called her, and she was exercising. She was on the treadmill, and so she was kind of out of breath, and so it was a little awkward phone call, but it's amazing. Chris has been around us, just like I mentioned the Matheny's before, the way we've had these people that we've walked through life together here at LCC and community, and what a wonderful start, or a strange start to a very wonderful relationship over the years.
Yeah. That's an awesome story. How about you, Bryn?
Like Greg, a very introverted kind of person. And it wasn't just a Bible study that the group was meeting. It was every week. You met with the same people. And it's hard for me to pipe in and share things. It's hard to open up your life, and I'm probably not the best role model for being the out front person there, but it's good, because it's a group of people you can do life with. You can share, back in the day when we're having kids, or people are getting married, or now it's family scenarios where we have aging parents and things like that. Yeah. So it's interesting, because at times you're going through things where there's a lot of similarity with what you're going through with other people, and a lot of times you might be in a group where there isn't a whole lot of common ground, except that you're all coming to be a part of a community together. And so there were some drier seasons in cell group, but that doesn't necessarily mean I walked away with nothing. Those drier seasons just helped me focus on the fact that, just because it might not be the best season of life for me in a cell group, whatever that season is, I learned from that. And then there were other very fruitful seasons, and
Yeah.
it's a whole basket full of all sorts of things that happen within the cell group, and the people you get to know, and the families within those people, and just the activities you can do together. And your common bond is just learning the word together and doing life together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really true, and
Yep.
it becomes a family.
Yep.
And I think that's true. God teaches you in the dry times, and God moves through those other times too to transform you.
Yep.
Sometimes your driest experience is someone else's
Yeah.
best experience too. So
Right. Yep.
you're moving up north. Have I said that?
To Michigan, yes.
Yeah. When you think about being involved in a community there, right, of believers, a small group, what's on your mind as you're heading out and finding that?
Well, it's going to be a challenge for us. It's a much different culture up there. It's a very church culture where we're moving. Holland it's a much smaller town, obviously. And there are plenty of good Bible-believing churches there. I'm not concerned about finding a good, healthy place that way. But the community side may be more of a challenge. I think their culture up there, and these are my biases, and maybe I'll tell you something completely different after we've been there for a while. But our thoughts, just from observing there, because we went to school at Hope College in Holland, and since our family's up there, we've been to Holland many times, and it's just much more family-oriented than here. Because of the transient nature of Columbus. And so, we may be challenged on breaking in to find friends and build those kinds of connections. But I think that's going to be a real challenge for us, and I hope some of our friends back here will keep us accountable to that, to dive in and meet that. But we've been encouraged.
We all heard
that. We're very encouraged right now because we have already met a couple of our neighbors, and since everybody's moving in at the same time, you have that commonality with them, and maybe that'll help us dive in a little quicker than I think.
For sure. So you guys have poured your lives into your group and LCC through the years. What contributed to you staying in those dry seasons? What made you stay? What kept you going in that time? Did you ever, you kind of said it, but I'll ask you again, did you ever just want to give up, throw in the towel and say, this is not for me? Either.
Well, yeah, not that strong, but there's certainly times when you kind of got so much going on in tonight's cell group, and it would be nice if we could have a break or something like that. But we have a recording, Dan, that you made that's on our website under the cell group tab, I believe, under mylcc.com. And the recording's called Before You Go to Cell Group, and I just have, that has endured at our church for a long time, that recording, because I think it speaks so well to how we should work on developing our attitude and our hearts for cell group, because I think it's definitely, as you mentioned in Acts, that's how God wants us to live. And on that recording, it talks about preparing yourself beforehand for group and thinking about how God can use you. When you're in group, at the meeting, asking follow-on questions and pursuing people in the group, and then afterwards, during the rest of the week, following up. And Bryn's really good about that. She will check in with people throughout the week and keep in connection. She does that really well in the background, and that's neat to see. But that recording, I think, is, and I would really challenge the people at LCC to listen to that. And we used to encourage, back when we had CDs back in the old days, better than cassettes, but still CDs. we'd encourage people to pop it in their player on their car on the way to cell group and listen to that every week. And just to remind you that you need to be an active agent in pursuing people.
Yeah.
And God wants that, and God uses that to help us all through stuff, is when people are pursuing each other. So that is an excellent resource, and I would continue to encourage people to use that.
Yeah. Well said. All right, so let's talk a little bit about transparency, okay? Because that's one of our core values, and it's part of the culture here. And you and I've talked about the fact that we're just not used to the fact that we've been steeped in this culture now for a long time, right? And we've been, through the years, we've been challenged, and it's been a slow transformation in us to open up our lives. And we still, to this day, you want to close it, right?
Yes.
You got to keep working at it and things like that. So we've been steeped in the culture. It's one of our core values, which is to be personally authentic. And that is, the core value is that we believe that God intends us to live life honestly. We're not afraid to admit our flaws, our fears, not pressured to pretend that we're someone we're not. And this is just such an important thing for followers of Jesus to know that God is transparent with us, and we need to live that way with a full understanding of that His grace covers us when we feel like we want to hide. His grace covers us and actually frees us to open up our lives to others. Jesus modeled this. He pursued people. He pursued the woman at the well in John 4. He pursued even religious leaders. He tried to get to the heart of the issue. And we talk a lot about it around here, that we've got these levels of honesty that we're pursuing. We're trying to get better at them. That first level is that level 1 honesty is, this is how life is, right? Life's hard. Level 2 honesty says, this is how I've been in the past, maybe I had a difficult time with this or that. And then this level 3 that's willing to step out and say, this is how I'm doing right now, and as the Bible interacts with that. And that's a hard place to get sometimes. So I guess the question is, what's your journey been? You said you're both introverts, right? So what's the journey been to open up that and have that value be a part of your life?
I think it's the grace component of that is extremely important, that we create a graceful environment, and that allows people to open up and share when you don't think you're going to get bashed. And Satan is using our culture today to beat people up over their mistakes, and to broadcast that over the news and the Facebook and all these, and beat up on people. And we need to have an environment that's exactly opposite of that. Of course, everything pretty much Christ taught us is completely countercultural. But, when I first, early days of LCC, we had a men's group that got together, and the graceful environment that they had there was the first time really in my life that allowed me and others to open up about things that men struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
and really be honest about that. And that was so new to me, and was so helpful to me. And not only just, and one thing I learned was what I thought was issues that were unique to me, and that God was very upset with me over dealing with, is something that many people were dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's so important. I mean, and why it's important for us to open up and be transparent, because it's not just us. It's not just helping me wrestle through this, but by doing that, you help others.
Yeah.
And people need to hear that
Yeah.
we recognize we're all sinful and fall far short of what God intended, but it's only through the grace of Christ that we can have any confidence in knowing that God is pleased with us.
Yeah, and we talk about that in our staff, and we do it on our elder team. That's one of the things that maybe people don't know, is that part of our elder team is like, it's really cell group. It's like, what's going on, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening, and having that level 3 kind of interaction. I'll ask you about this, and you can choose to answer or not. You talked about your brother. We talked about it before, and the impact that had on transparency. You want to say anything about that?
Well, I had an adopted brother that struggled his whole life. He was about 5-7 years younger than me, and we didn't have many. He didn't allow us many opportunities to be with him, and so every time we would have a Christmas time together or Thanksgiving, I'd always think about I really need to press him about where he is, what is he wrestling with, and is there a way we can help lead him to realize that God loves him, and just that opportunity didn't come, and it was provided some guilt feelings when he eventually took his own life, and I recognize that God doesn't hold us responsible for our lack of action on those things, but you can't help but wonder, what could I have done? That's a natural thing in those circumstances. What could I have done? But I've grown enough to realize that I don't think that's an appropriate response to that. But maybe a challenge, though, in the future to err on the side of trying to probe into what's going on with people's lives, and that's why I think it's so powerful what we're doing here at LCC and cell groups, and encouraging people to wrestle with and bring out these kinds of things.
Yeah. Bryn, you want to add anything? You don't have to.
Repeat the question.
What's been your journey as far as being transparent?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's just, it's helpful to hear what other people have to say. And so I have to think on the flip side of the coin that it has, in a way, there might be a way that it's helpful if people have something that I have to say, if it's something struggling wise or whatever. And once again, it's both sides of the it's all ends of the spectrum. It's the joyful stuff, it's the hard stuff. We've when people lose, we've had cell groups where members of the family have passed away, and we've come alongside, and like Greg had mentioned with his brother or whatever, and the cell group is there to support, and we're there to do the same for other members of our cell group. And it's just, I don't know, when you get emotions involved, and it just helps it bring life, just down to the core of what's going on with people, instead of facade kinds of things, or keeping at a distance. It really, I think it brings out the best in everybody to see everybody's real side, and so it challenges me to continue to do my best to be who I am in front of the other people. So
Yeah, that's really good.
yeah.
All right, both of you, I know you don't consider yourself risk takers, right? But honestly, the journey to enter into with other people and to be transparent is share your heart is risky. And Greg, you too, we've gone over it, but you've stepped into hard situations as an elder and as a brother, and Bryn, you as a sister to other people. And you've been a part of a culture here where we've tried to take risks and encourage each other to take risks for the kingdom. And God wants us to do that. He wants us to step forward in faith that he's going to come through as well. And there's this crazy account in Joshua 3 of God's people. They're crossing the Jordan River. He's encouraged them. He's told them to cross it. He instructs the priests who are carrying the ark to first put their feet in the water, and then the miracle will happen, okay? The problem is that the river is at flood stage, okay? And it takes an initial risk move, right? A step of faith for the priests to put their feet in first. But they do it, and God responds. The river is dried up, and they're able to cross. Now, you ask yourself the question, why did God have them put their feet in first? Why not just do it from a distance? He could still bring glory, right? But God operates that way a lot, where he asks us to take a step And sometimes the odds seem like they're not in our favor, and yet we take that step, and then he responds. And I think we've seen it around here. I'll ask you, how have you seen that around here, Greg, and maybe in your own life or in the life of LCC?
Well, certainly it wasn't my risk-taking, but being a part of some of the risk-taking that the church did in the early days, asking to use the movie theater, which I thought was going to be a crazy request, and that they would just laugh at us, and they ended up renting it to us for, what, $50 a week, was it, Dan?
Oh, gosh.
Something
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
crazy.
And they eventually gave us use of the whole place.
Yeah.
The managers there were very, very lenient, and we rewired some of the theaters so that we had power up front. We added lights. We took every storage space they had, and I
my
learned an
gosh.
awful lot about running a movie theater, or at least the behind the scenes, how a theater works
Oh, yeah.
by doing that. So that was an amazing thing. When we asked Sutherland's if they would essentially write off half their building.
Sutherland's was a lumber yard. That's what
This building,
facility,
was a
stands on.
Sutherland's lumber yard, and it was vacant. They had closed down operations here, and we talked to them in St. Louis and made an offer to them that we could pay about half of what it was worth, and that if they could write off the other half as a
Yeah.
charitable donation to
Yeah.
our church. And I thought, we're crazy. They're going to accept that.
That was our feet in the water, right? Oh, this is impossible, not going to happen, but we'll do it.
But it happened, and here
Yeah.
we sit today in an
Yeah.
old
Man,
Sutherland's
God,
lumber
did some
yard.
crazy stuff there.
And then we ran into the zoning issues with the city of Hilliard because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want to give up the tax revenue from this property. Understandable,
Yeah.
very much so. But we had to go before the meeting. Even had some TV coverage of the night that our church went and talked to them and to encourage
Oh,
them
yeah,
to
I
approve
remember that, yeah.
zoning change that we needed to use this. And all those, God came through and answered it. And all of them, to be honest, I thought were nuts.
Yeah.
And they weren't.
Yeah, there's no way this is gonna
This
happen.
isn't going to work. So,
Gosh. And then you guys took a risk. You went to Peru too, right? As a family.
Yeah, with
As
our
a young
family.
your kids are very young.
Yeah, we
right?
took our two boys, and Seth was, 11, which was too young for E3
It was
partners.
10 or 11, yeah.
And we asked them to give us a break on that, and they did. And what an awesome experience that was, and to go to the slums of Lima, Peru, and I was so grateful that the boys had an opportunity to understand the blessed life they live here in the United States.
Yeah.
And it almost feels a little selfish because most of the lessons seem to be more for us than for the people we went to. But we were helping to knock on doors and start a church. But I mean, I remember going up and knocking on a door, and someone answered it who only had one eye with no covering over the lost eye, and just shocked.
Yeah.
And I shudder to think what my expression was on my face. But we talked to her about that they were starting a church in the area, and asked her about her spiritual life and things, and just those kinds of experiences do something to your heart. And it was so glad that we went and did those things, and we saw lots of examples of that. Do you have anything to add on that?
It was a great experience. It was a great experience for us, and I think when we went there, the various and sundry churches and the church groups that it was a big group for E3. It was like 36 of us or whatever.
Wow.
So we were 4 of those 36, and it was just it was a lot of fun. It was fun to see how the boys interacted, our boys, with, we were placed with a church, and Seth was my charge. He was just a little guy at the time, and the pastors it was a rally at the beginning, and they kind of chose churches, chose groupings of people who would be helping them for that next 4 or 5 days, and surprisingly, he chose us to be a part of their group because he saw Seth as a young one, and Seth was like the Pied Piper of all the kids there, and he had a whole bunch of kids himself as the pastor of the church. And
Wow.
Ryan was older. He was going to be a senior in high school. It was the summer before his senior year, and so he was off with another group. So that was like, that was difficult for us to send him off to another place an hour farther
Oh,
off
yeah.
on the bus
Yeah.
for each and every day. So there were just all sorts of things. I mean, like Greg said, they ministered to us more so than I felt we ministered to them, but it was a great experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that's some faith stretching there.
yeah,
You know, we look a lot of times at those big kind of risks that you know, that we take, but there's a lot of that are less noticeable risks that people take, and you guys have taken, I mentioned it before, just even getting together with someone else, even one-on-one, to mentor or to share life with in that way and to disciple, that can feel like a big deal. And I've seen you guys do that. And I just wanted to, that's been important in my journey. I can think of mentors who were older than me who mentored me and helped me along. That's such an important thing, and you guys have done that through the years and had an impact that way. And I'm gonna just give a challenge to, specifically to the older men in our church. And I'll just say this, those who are older, those who are farther along in their faith, this body needs you. You are, some of you are Pauls now. You're not Timothy's anymore. You're farther along in your faith. And Titus, in the book of Titus, chapter 2, it challenges older men to be involved with younger men, and older women to be involved with younger women, to try to mentor and to bring them along. And we've seen that happen around here. It's happening around here now. The older are reaching out to the younger and developing relationships that way, and it's exciting and it's biblical, and we need older men doing that. We need it more than people complaining about how things used to be or how the state of our country and where things are going. If we want to make eternal impact, you can make it today. Just get together with someone younger than you. Invest in those people. And even if you're retired, and Greg's retired now, right? If you're retired, that is like the richest season in your life to be able to invest in young people and to mentor those who are in their 20s or 30s and so on. So don't check out. Be invested. Build this body through the time and the opportunities that God's given you. These guys have done it, and I think that's really a cool thing. So don't choose a life of just comfort. I'll ask you guys that because you're getting ready to move, and it's like you get to start new, right? So you have the opportunity. Oh, we can check out everything, right? What do you think about, like, as far as taking risks?
Well, I just remember when we were young in our prior church, I wanted so much to meet with older men to have them mentor me. And so I initiated it and went and asked a couple guys, and we got together a few times. It didn't really go where I had hoped it would. But I would just encourage people, both for the young men, or young people in our church, to be bold and take a risk and ask someone older to help you. And as Dan just mentioned, for the older men and women to make themselves available to do that. And a lot of people would think, well, raising my kids was such a challenge. How can that help a young person? But as we mentioned earlier, the helping the successes and failures that we've done help equally as much. Someone who's young to hear how you wrestled through things and struggled to in your life. Those things can really help and motivate people and encourage them in their life.
Yeah, that's well said.
So anyway, your question was about the coming. We're going to have to challenge ourselves in doing that in our new setting. And as I mentioned before, we've already met a couple neighbors, real friendly, and so maybe there's some potential there for some people to start hooking up with and see where that goes. But particularly with us in a new church, we're going to have to take the initiative and dive in. And it's going to be awful easy just to sit in the back row and worship and enjoy that and then leave for the week. And so we need to be challenged on that.
I don't think you'll do that. I think I'll tell you how I know, and I'll tell you in a second. And this is the last thing, one of the last things to talk about is just what I've seen in you as far as modeling for our church body faithfulness and servanthood. You guys, I'm telling you, you're just examples of that. And there's a verse, a passage, I think if you guys want to ever read it, and it's 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 9 through 12. It says, "But we don't need to write to you about the importance of loving each other, for God himself has taught you to love one another. Indeed, you are already show your love for all the believers throughout the region, Macedonia. Even so, dear brothers and sisters, we urge you to love them even more." And then verse 11, "Make it your goal to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands, or at your company, just as we instructed you before. Then people who are not believers will respect the way you live and you will not need to depend on others." And I think people know who you guys are by the way you've lived life at your company, and by, Bryn, you are respected in this community. You probably don't know how much you're respected as somebody who's given piano lessons over the years, who's brought people into their home and has just done a fantastic job, just been faithful. It's not been maybe this big flashy thing, but it's consistent, it's devoted to people, and I think you have a level of respect because of that. So I just admire that in you guys. Greg, I'll say this about you, this goes back to taking risks. Before you even retired, and I'm like, who does this, okay? Before you even retired, you talked to me and you said, "I want to help at the church. I want to get involved. I want to be, I don't want to just, check out or whatever." Now, maybe Bryn was saying, get him out of the house, get him something to do. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. But the fact is, you entered in, you said, "Hey, can I come to staff time every Friday? I just love to be around, love to see what's going on." And you also helped develop a mission structure. You started it, the mission structure that is now being enacted. You did stuff around Honduras and other things. I know you said, I didn't do enough. But who does that? Who, before they're even retired, most people are like, "Oh, I just want to get done so I can check out." For how long? You were invested, and that is just, again, it's that's who you are. And that's why I think when you go up to Michigan, you won't be able to rest too long in that. You'll be looking for opportunities to serve. And I think you model what we see our Savior, right? In Jesus in Philippians 2, he valued others above himself, right? He laid down his life, and we're challenged to do that in our relationships with each other and with the people in this world too. So I'll say real quick.
Yeah, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Break
Sorry.
your train of thought here on this. No, I just wanted to tell our church that what a blessing it was to go to those staff meetings, and what an incredible group of people that is, and to see them, the way they work together unselfishly is a real tribute to the leadership there, Dan, that you've provided. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. I just like to sit back and watch what's going on, because it's a truly great group of people whose heart are for spreading God's love and encouraging people and all the things that we've done. So it's that was a real blessing, and thank you for allowing me to sneak in on those.
And it's been great having you there. It's been a fun time for sure. But going back, faithfulness, it's a quality that it's rare. It's becoming rare. What does it mean to faithfully engage in the body of Christ and not, when things get hard, right, to fall away or to change, to leave it? You guys are a model for all of us, that God transforms us as we enter in, as we're faithful, and we persevere through the ups and downs of what happens. So that's a challenge, I think, for all of us, is faithfulness transforms the body of Christ. Faithful living, being committed to Jesus, being committed to others, and to the kingdom's expansion. So you guys have lived that out. Yeah. And Jesus, we talk about it in John, Jesus, that was his example, right? His example was he washed the feet of his disciples. And he said, do this for each other. Serve, be servants to each other as you go. And that's the structure we have at LCC. We've tried to implement that it's a servant structure, right? And I think it's had an impact on both of you just to see that happen. It's a healthy, godly picture. So do you want to add anything to that, or you don't have to? Okay, okay. All right, so let's finish up our time here, and I want to just say this. We didn't do this to elevate Greg or Bryn or this body or LCC, right? But to say that Jesus has called us to be all in with his bride, the church. And the McCalls, they've been examples to us of how that happens, and just to know how to love him first, how to love the body too. And he wants us to give our lives because that's what he's done for us. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, there's this great chapter about what's called the cloud of witnesses. These are the great men and women of the faith who lived by faith, who pushed through when things seemed impossible. And Paul talks about them in Hebrews 12, and he says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, right? Since we've got that legacy of who's come before us, who've been examples to us, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race that's marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer, perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. And Greg and Bryn, you're in my cloud. You have witnesses, in addition to the other people too. You're there because I look to you. You've set an example for me as a younger follower of Jesus that I want to emulate in my life, and I know there's many others around here who want to do that too. And the last thing I'll say is I can't even express how God has used your faithfulness and your encouragement to fill the tanks of our staff and me personally in times when things were running dry. There's been moments, and you've just poured into us. So I will miss that, and I know you'll still do it because that's who you are. But thanks for sharing with us today, for putting yourself out there, taking another risk, and we're just really grateful to God for all he's done.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.